Well, good evening. How are you all tonight? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I'm Steve Smith. It's been a day. Just got back from, I want to talk about, first off, your preparedness is in your hands. Your preparedness or lack thereof is in your hands. It doesn't have a darn thing to do with what's going on in the rest of the world. And I think that's a mistake many people make as they're bouncing around between all the many catastrophes that seem to be befalling us every day. For those who have avoided being entrapped in the 24/7 coverage of the put together with duct tape mini-sub that went down to look at the Titanic. Why you would want to do that is beyond me. Let's talk about things that are serious. It's been a day. Just got back from dinner at Granite City, and I am stuffed. Time for a Yingling and to sit out here and relax and talk to you all. I shot one this morning, and it was about something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, and it's about what was it? What was it? Preparedness. Preparedness, yeah. And it's not about people being prejudiced against preppers. It's about prejudice that you find within the prepper world. And I got ready to upload it, and there was no sound. I don't know if I forgot to plug the mic in deep enough or what, but I just wasn't in the mood to do it again, and I'm not in the mood to do it right now. So I'm going to move on and do this one. I'll get back to that someday because it's an important subject. Another drink of Yingling, my favorite beer. The oldest brewery in America. One more, and then we'll go at this. Yeah, so I just got back from dinner at Granite City. You ever had their Millionaire Burger? Oh boy, Millionaire Burger and garlic mashed potatoes, and I can barely move. I was putting together some designs for a mug series for American Reversion, coffee mugs for American Reversion. And as I was doing that, yes, the mug for hopefully I'll be doing those mugs this week. So I'll have the Stone Mountain mug available for you to see, and it'll be up on the website for you to order, stonemont.us, not .com, stonemont.us. So anyway, I was putting together a number of designs. There's going to be, I think, 6 or more designs of mugs for American Reversion. For those of you who don't know, that's the other channel where we talk a little bit more about politics. What's going on in the world, what's wrong with the world, and what are we going to do about it, that kind of thing. Somebody will come on here right now and say, there's nothing you can do about it, which means there's nothing that they care to do about it. And as I was reading through some quotes, because each of the mugs is going to have a quote from a founding father on it, along with graphics and pictures and things, I came upon this one. From George Washington. And he says, happiness depends more upon the internal frame of a person's own mind than on the externals in the world. And I thought, man, if that doesn't, may not say it all, but it says a lot. I'll say that again, and then we'll get into it. Happiness depends more upon the internal frame of a person's own mind than on the externals in the world. I'm sure you all know exactly what he's saying there. It means that no matter what goes on in the world, he says happiness. I would say security, preparedness, any number of things, fulfillment, depends entirely on what you do. Now, what you do will relate to different things in the world differently, but it has to do with what you do. When I used to teach martial arts, one of the things that I would stress to my students, especially my new students, was how not to get hit. There's 3 ways not to get hit. First off, don't be there when the blow is coming, when the strike is coming. Don't be there, okay? Either stay at home, but that's not, usually we're beyond that. Or get out of the way, okay? Avoidance. Avoid it. Step out of the way if you can. It's the best way. The next best way is to parry it, which simply means you redirect the force of that strike, whether it's a punch, a kick, whatever, doesn't matter. You redirect the force. In other words, you're not meeting force with force. You are a little bit avoiding and redirecting their force. So it does not land on you. It doesn't damage you. The third way, the least preferred, but sometimes it's all that you can do, is by blocking it. Now, depending on what they're trying to hit you with, is it a fist, is it a rock, is it a hammer, is it a knife? I know people will say stabbing. Well, let's just say, they're going to hit you with a knife. A knife's different, but let's use those other blunt instruments, fist, rock, whatever. It can be difficult, even though every system teaches a number of different blocks and parries. It can be difficult to intercept a strike that's coming at you hard and fast. And to try to intercept it way out there or when it begins, it can be done, but it's more difficult. I'd say the one thing that you do know is the target of their strike. And if that is your head, then you don't have to worry about all this area out here, because that strike is going to come in right here. All you have to concentrate on is getting something between that strike and its intended target, right? I'm not going to knock my head off here, so I won't do a perfect technique, but get something between that strike and your head. Does that make sense? Okay. Rather than trying to do a fancy block way out there that you might get it, you might not get it. There's been plenty of blows landed that slipped over a block. But if you have blocked the intended target, you have protected it. Last-ditch effort. You'd rather either be able to avoid it or parry it or whatever. But when it comes down to it, protect the target. Okay. That's kind of what George Washington was saying. Well, it wasn't what he was talking about, I'm sure. I'm sure he wasn't talking about boxing or karate or anything else, but the general thing, we'll read it one more time, happiness depends more upon, and I will say security instead of happiness, or preparedness or safety or any of these things, depends more upon the internal frame of a person's own mind than the externals in the world. So let me change that just a little bit. Your security, your preparedness, your safety depends more upon what you have done than the different threats coming from the world. Okay, does that make sense? Okay. I could go with this and say that the greatest enemy that you're dealing with potentially is yourself if you don't understand that. If you think that all of the threats coming at you from right and left, we see them coming all over the place, right? And left. One after another. Could be the border, could be the economy, could be... There's sometimes I'm not even going to mention. We know what they are. By the way, I just put up a couple of really good things on the American Reversion Patreon channel having to do with impeachment articles being brought against Biden. Now here's where somebody says, oh, it's not going to do any good. No, that's just a bunch of, kabuki theater and all. Okay, all right. That's why I don't put it on here, see, because there's too many people here that, and not you, but that other guy back here, that it won't do anything, so he says nothing can be done. You see, that's That's really what I'm talking about. The person that says nothing can be done because they're not willing to do what it takes. That really comes down to this. Well, the world is whatever. The world is this. The world is that. You can't get them. They won't let it. The powers that be, the this and that, and the everything. Nothing can be done. See, you're concentrating on exactly what Washington was saying about what's going on the rest of the world. You're not paying attention to what's going on with you. And if you understand that almost all of the kinds of threats that we see coming at us now can be mitigated, that we can protect ourselves against those things with basic and advanced preparedness. Advanced preparedness will protect you against pretty much every threat that anybody on any preparedness channel talks about. Simple as that. Self-sustainability. But that starts here. That starts here with your understanding that it's not about what's going on in the rest of the world. It's about what's going on with you. And you are the one who decides what's going on with you. That makes sense. So I know that people like to get all wound up about the latest threat or catastrophe. It's just like this Titan mini sub, right? I mean, it has consumed the news, and then we'll have people say that's just trying to take our eyes off the impeachment and of Biden and the this and the that and all that kind of stuff. Well, you know, it works. That's why they do it. If that's true, I don't know. It doesn't have to take our eyes off that. The people who run the news, they know that people love other people having problems. They love to read about it. They love to watch it. They're all caught up in it, right? My son and I were talking about this today, and you know, it goes back to the old "if it bleeds, it leads." People love to watch for some reason. There's a psychology here I won't get into, but the masses love reading about and hearing about and watching horrible things that have happened to other people. A couple of reasons probably. First off, they're glad, well, it didn't happen to me. That's great, right? And then there's another sickness there. I mean, there really is a pathology, as far as I'm concerned, of enjoying other people's, grief. But then also, it kind of brings people together, regardless of what they may think. It's kind of like a snowstorm, a thunderstorm, whatever. You know how people always seem to get happier when a storm's coming, and then they talk to people they've never talked to before, don't usually talk to, or a snowstorm. All of a sudden, people become good friends because they have something to talk about, right? A shared experience. I'm convinced that that's why so many people watch sports. They can't talk about real things to other people, but they can talk about some college kid, who can barely read or write and how many passes he can catch. But it brings people together because people really are social animals for the most part. It doesn't matter how antisocial somebody thinks they are. And really that's nothing to be proud of. They need social contact and they need social interaction. And if they don't have it, there is a real negative result that comes from that. And they start to pull in farther and farther and farther into their own shell until they tell themselves and other people that that's what they prefer. And I've known a lot of those situations, and I don't believe it. It's simply that people won't put themselves out there, take the chances of dealing with the world, and they'd rather not deal with it. But anyway, these things bring people together in a shared experience. Well, it's kind of the same in prepping, that so many people like to talk about the same things in prepping. And I mean, I see it. I don't see it so much here on this channel, but I see it in others. I mean, I see the same type of comments being left that I saw 7, 8 years ago when I first started watching some of these YouTubes, right? Same stuff, same sayings, just regurgitated incessantly until it has no meaning. You know, the first time somebody says something, it means something because they thought it and they came up with it. And then if people want to repeat it a few times, that's fine. But I'll tell you what, when you hear the same thing for 7 and 8 years and people say it as if that means something, you see, that shows that they are dealing with the externals rather than concentrating on the internals. Does that make sense? Well, it makes sense to me. So I hope it does to you too. What Washington was talking about is exactly right. Forget about what's going on out there in the rest of the world. I mean, don't forget about it. Keep your eye on it because you want to know where the threats are and from where they are coming. You won't always know from whence they are coming. Whence. How often do you hear the word whence on a preparedness channel, right? You won't always know from whom they're coming. You won't always know the why. You won't always know the when, or the where or the how, any of that stuff. But keeping your eye on it is just like keeping your eye on the sky, keeping your eye on the clouds. Is a storm coming? Yeah, it looks like it might be. Looks like it's coming from over there. Ooh, and over there too, and over there. Guess I'd better keep an eye on it, okay? But you know what? Keeping an eye on it doesn't solve it. Complaining about it doesn't solve it. Jumping up and down about it doesn't solve it. Saying catchy phrases doesn't solve it. It's looking to yourself and looking within and developing your own safety, security, and preparedness that's important and that will get you through regardless of whatever problem may come your way. Some people will say, well, that's awfully simplistic, Steve. You haven't really told us anything. And I would say, I've just told you everything. Everything. Keep your eye on what's going on around you, you know. I mean, if you're out in the jungle, keep an eye out for threats. But you're not just wandering through the jungle, being scared of all the threats, and then when one jumps out at you, going spastic, right? No. You are conducting yourself in a way in which you provide the greatest safety and security to yourself. So that's the thing. And you know, and so in this, I might just call this the greatest enemy. Because the greatest enemy to most people and to most preppers, from what I've seen, is themselves. It's themselves either refusing to acknowledge the many different threats, refusing to acknowledge that it's up to them to do everything they can, instead clasping onto this idea that nothing can be done, nothing, we're all done for. Well, you know, if a person figures they're done for, they are, because they're not going to do anything to avoid it, right? But that's the most, that's the greatest enemy for most people is themselves. Not focusing. You've heard me tell the story both here and on the Stone Mountain Church channel about the story of Christ and Peter walking on the water. I'll review it here very briefly. One night after Christ had been preaching, he stayed behind The disciples set out across the water. In the middle of the night, the disciples wake up. They look out across, a storm comes up, wakes them up. Storm is raging, waves, all that. And they see Christ coming across, walking on the water towards them. They think he's a ghost. He says, "Fear not, it is I." Peter says, "If it is truly you, Lord, call me to you and I will come." Jesus says, "Okay, come." Peter steps out of the boat, looks at it. It doesn't say how many steps he takes. I'm not going to add to the Bible. For a moment or a minute or however long, everything's fine. He's looking at Jesus, right? He's walking on the water, and all of a sudden, he notices again the storm around him and the raging seas and the waves and all that, and he becomes frightened. And he starts to sink. Jesus holds out his hand and pulls him back up. And the lesson there, of course, is that when you have your eye and your attention on the solution, you're in good shape. In Peter's case, through faith. When you take your eye off of the solution and start worrying about the problems, all the waves around you, all the problems in the world, that's when you become overcome with fear and you start to sink. So take your eyes off of all those problems. Stop being, and probably most of you, I'm not talking to most of you, but for those who I'm talking to you. Stop being so fearful of all of the problems. Stop needing to be fearful of all of the problems. Put your eyes and your attention on the solution, which is your internals, your responsibility to prepare. If you don't prepare, it is the fault of the biggest enemy you have. And that is the part of you that refuses to do what it takes to prepare. The most basic of responsibilities in our lives. Put your attention, put your eyes on what you should be doing. And then if you do it, just like the block, it won't matter what's coming in at you. It won't hit you, at least as hard as it was going to. Okay? Will you deflect it? Will you block it? Whatever. But you'll be able to handle it better. Okay? So, your greatest strength, your greatest ally is you. Your determination to accept the responsibility for your own preparedness and your determination to do what it takes. Okay? And for the person who always comes on and says, but your greatest ally is God and Jesus and all that. Yes. Thank you. I know that. Most of us here know that. I won't take your comment off, but realize that's not the purpose of this video. You might want to join us on the Stonemont Church channel. Okay? We've already acknowledged our greatest support, our greatest protection, our greatest provider is God and Jesus Christ. Now that we've established that, let me get back to what I was saying. Your greatest strength is the part of you that's determined to be prepared. Your greatest enemy is if there's a part of you that refuses to do it, refuses to see the solutions, and instead wants to concentrate on the threats. Okay, all right. This Yingling is good. I'm going to finish it. And then get ready for a big family gathering we're having tomorrow. So you all have a good night. Think about this. I'll get back and make that one on prepper prejudice another day when I feel like it. But remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow. And the first step of proper preparation. And somebody will come on here and say, the 7 P's. Yes, we know that. We know that. We've been saying that for 20 years. Preparation. Proper preparation is in your hands. Okay? Prepare well today so you can live well tomorrow. Prepare, don't worry. Don't fret. Take yourself off of that constantly spinning hamster wheel of fear and trepidation and determined to live a positive life. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.